Jalin Turner steps in on short notice to take on King Bobby Green at UFC Austin next Saturday. That's going to be a heck of a fight. Stay tuned. We're going to break that fight down, give you a prediction, and get into more UFC news right after this.
You're watching the Community MMA.
What up? It's your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the Community MMA, aka the TCMMA podcast. We had to shorten it down after a while, right? The Community MMA, just too long. We had to shorten it down to TCMMA podcast. But I like it. You know, we're rolling right through it. It's been a few episodes now since we made that big change. And speaking of changes, there's a lot of things going on in the UFC. Jalin Turner stepping in on short notice. What's going on with UFC 300, right? Will Shavkat Rakhmonov actually get to fight Wonder Boy? Or are there people that believe he's going to step out at the last second and there's other fighters ready to step in? So we're going to get into some of those topics throughout the show. But let's begin with, and we'll hold the predictions till a little bit later, but let's get into some topics first. And the biggest one is UFC 300. What is going on? Who is fighting at this thing? You know, when you're dealing with UFC 100, 200, 300, they're trying to put on a big-time show, but the problem is they got 3 big-time fights before that. So a lot of fighters aren't going to be able to fight. Volkanovski can't fight there. You got Leon Edwards and Colby Covington getting ready to fight. There's a lot of other big names, but guys that are available, that's the key. Alex Pereira is available. Would a fight versus Jamal Hill qualify for the main event at UFC 300? Are there some tricky things going on among fighters like GSP, Georges St. Pierre? Is he coming back? Will he headline the card? Who knows? And, you know, that could happen maybe in the main card, but I don't see that being the main event. They're going to have a real title on the line, a real situation, or you got to have Conor McGregor. So I know this conspiracy is probably wrong, but I'm still going to put it out there. And I'm talking UFC 300 because there's been a bunch of them to come to light, right? I really think it's going to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And I'm hoping and praying that it's Alex Pereira versus Khamzat Chimaev. And some of you think I'm crazy. But Conor McGregor and Khamzat on the same card. And if Khamzat can win the title, right, UFC gives him a chance out of nowhere. He's already called to go up to light heavyweight. He don't care. And he gets the win, and you look back in UFC 300 and say that's the beginning of the reign of Khamzat. You know, it's about how you look back at events. And I'm just saying anything could happen. That's a wild one. But, you know, it's not unimaginable. Now, here's what Ariel Helwani is saying about UFC 300. Sometimes I feel like the UFC, because Conor is such a big deal, they try to find the perfect scenario for him to fight in. He explained that he heard maybe plans are changing with regards to McGregor at UFC 300. This is a transcript via MMA News, right, from his show. And I can understand from a business standpoint why you wouldn't want to put him on UFC 300. Because, you know, the thing is UFC 300 sells itself, right? Then you could have McGregor on 301, 302, and then you get 2 shots at 1 million pay-per-view buys. So that's the thinking there. But now with the star power and like guys like Sean O'Malley and, you know, Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski, that fight's already booked. You got 3 big main events booked right before that at 297, 298, 299. Colby Covington and Leon Edwards are going to be done. John Jones is on the shelf. Something's got to give here. The UFC is going to have to do something different and mix things up in this thing. And that's why I say anything is possible. Anything is possible with this event and who the UFC will choose to headline this thing. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens. It's not going to be long before they make an announcement, but it could be a month just because they have the next 4 already figured out. And you got till April for UFC 300, but they're not going to get too far into late December, early January before they have to make a decision. So, look for that to come out. And I can't wait to see what route they take, to be completely honest with you. I can't to see what route they're going to take on that one. Now, as we switch gears, there is a UFC fighter that believes Shavkat will not make it. Or, Shavkat will make it. But Stephen Wonderboy Thompson won't make it to his fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, Wonderboy, it's already clear he doesn't want to fight Shavkat. The UFC must have done something to make this fight happen. But does that mean the fight is actually going to take place? I mean, is Wonderboy going to show up for this thing? Because you already know what Shavkat can do. But one fighter doesn't believe so, and that fighter is Jalin Buckley. I still plan to fight in December. We're looking at Shavkat and Wonderboy. No disrespect to Wonderboy. He's always been a tough guy and always willing to take fights. But for some reason, here we go. For some reason, something's telling me he ain't going to show up to that one. Something's telling me that Wonderboy ain't going to show up. So what Jalin Buckley's saying basically is, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to go. If Shavkat don't show up, I keep saying Shavkat because he's the first name. If Wonderboy doesn't show up, if Stephen Thompson doesn't go, he's ready to go. And this is the thing when you're talking about late fights, short notice fights, when someone drops out, there's always a guy below you willing to take that chance because there's not much to lose. And if you lose the fight, there's not much to lose because you can just say, oh, it's short notice. And even if you don't make that excuse, people will make it for you. So there's nothing wrong with going with a short notice fight. If you're below the guy you're fighting, there's just not much to lose. You get a pass if you lose, and you get paid. So that's the bottom line there. But I'm not sure if Wonderboy is going to show either, because this will be a big win for Shavkat. Big win to get a win over Wonderboy and continue moving up the ranks. So, Jalin Buckley won't help you any, but you will potentially get another win under your belt, which sometimes is more important, but you want those fights against top contenders because you want an opportunity to move up. Now, Anthony Smith, in a recent interview, was discussing Alexander Volkanovski and how he talked about not having any fight to prepare for and how hard that is. Sometimes we don't think of this among fighters. He said, I understand as the champion of your division, there's only a certain amount of pay-per-views every year. There's only a couple of spots you can fight every year, Smith said. You have to wait on contenders, especially when you're as dominant as he's been. There's not a lot of those challengers that people are really convinced you have a chance. And that's the key when it comes to challengers. You want ones that have a chance to make it happen. So he's kind of spinning his wheels, and sometimes as fighters we fall apart when we're spinning our wheels. He also went on to say more or less that you got to have something to look forward to. You got to have something that you're chasing. And that's why retirement potentially for fighters is so scary, because you no longer have that fight to chase. And now you got to come up with something different. Now, Anthony Smith is good because he's going to be a broadcaster. I think that's pretty clear that he's good at that, and that's something that he's going to be able to continue chasing after the game. But it is tough for guys like Volk who are waiting on a fight to be announced, and then instead you take the short notice and get dominated by Islam, but at least you had something to chase, you had something to work for. And no matter if you're a fighter or something else in life, you're always searching and chasing for something to do, to be creative in your own way. And it's tough for fighters when they're in no man's land. They just get done with a fight, or it's been a few months, they don't have any fights set up, it's hard to train. There's nothing, you need an opponent ahead of you. And I think this is a common challenge for all fighters, but especially champions, because they know they can't just fight 4, 5, 6 times a year. They're going to fight once or twice, and that's it. Because you got 12 divisions, and you got 12 pay-per-view cards a year. So you might get 2. And even then, there's barely enough room, because a title fight's not usually sliding down to number 3. You might get 1, 2, maybe 3 pay-per-view cards a year where there's 3 title fights. So those things are spread out like once every 6 months, more or less. So sometimes you're going 2, 3, 4 months with no fight to chase, no fight to prepare for. And that's always tough. So next Saturday, UFC Austin, will Joe Rogan be there? is Joe Rogan going to UFC Austin. How could he not? It's right in his backyard. And you got to believe he's going to make an appearance. It's going to be a rowdy crowd in Austin, Texas. They're going to have a good time at this one. And it's great that it's in December, right around the holidays. But speaking of holidays, we get a gift here with Jalin Turner, I'm telling you, jumping in against Bobby Green. I immediately went to the stats. Usually I don't peek, but this one I'm like, I got to see. This is a different matchup than Dan Hooker, and these guys are pretty close in the stats. I had a good time doing this prediction. So let's get into it right now. In the lightweight division, your co-main event. You got a co-main event and main event lightweight division. You got to love it. Jalin Turner, a.k.a. the Tarantula, steps in on short notice. He's 13-7, taking on King Bobby Green, who comes in at 31-14. Now, Turner, favorite, even though he's taking a fight on short notice. He's 5 inches taller. It's 6'3". Then Bobby Green, it's like that for every fight he's in. He's just 28, right? Entering his prime. Bobby Green, 37. Jalin Turner, 6-inch reach advantage, 77-71. He stands left-handed. Bobby Green stands right-handed. These guys are both active, right? Bobby Green, 6.2 significant strikes per minute. Jalin Turner, 5.9. Both guys well above average. Bobby Green can land like a takedown every 3 rounds. So can Jalin Turner. So what's a takedown defense? Jalin Turner stops 3 out of 4 at 75%. Bobby Green, 74%. This is a great matchup, probably better than the Dan Hooker matchup, just being honest. Jalin Turner now has struggled in the last 2 fights. When I say struggle, I mean he just happened to lose them. So maybe struggle is not the best word. Lost them both by split decision. Dan Hooker, 125-100 in significant strikes on him. Matoush had 4 takedowns on him. Jalin Turner led 40-29 in significant strikes. I thought Jalin Turner, in fact, won both of those fights. He was close. It was close enough for him to win. He just got the loss. For that, he was on a 5-fight win streak over Uros Medic, good fighter. Jamie Malarkey, good fighter. Brad Riddell, good fighter. 5 straight wins by finish before those 2 losses. So, don't count him out. You already know what Bobby Green can do. Beat Grant Dawson by KO. Submitted Tony Ferguson. That's hard to do. He had a no contest against Jared Gordon. But he did lose to Drew Dober by KO and Islam Makhachev by KO. And the Drew Dober one was probably as a result of the Islam fight, even though it was like 10 months later. It's very hard to come back after like a KO, TKO type finish when you just get dominated. It really makes you second guess, and the next fight it shows. But Bobby Green is a worthy opponent. He's back. He's getting better. 37. He's slowing down, but he's not slowing down a lot just yet. He's still, he's out of that prime window, but he's still very animated, has a lot of energy, good on the feet. Again, over 6 significant strikes per minute, but I can't go against Jalin Turner. Jalin Turner is hitting that peak age. The next 4 or 5 years are going to be very telling. This is not a fight you can afford to lose and have to spend, a year getting back up to where you were at. So Jalin Turner's got to win this fight. After winning 5 in a row, he dropped 2 in a row. He'll get back in the win column. But Bobby Green is no joke. So look for this. Just be wary of the KO punches. But Jalin Turner's a favorite for a reason. I think in this situation, he's just going to look more experienced and win in all facets, whatever way it must go. But both guys, great takedown defense. So can Jalin Turner keep the distance and strike with Bobby Green? I think he does. To get the win, move to 14-7, likely by decision. Look for both guys to be well over 100 significant strikes here. Lightweight division, UFC Austin. Yeah, I like this fight so much, I didn't even want to give the prediction. I just wanted to keep talking. I like both of these guys. I like Jalin Turner and King Bobby Green. The Tarantula versus the King. I love it. But you got to go with Jalin Turner. The guy was on a 5-fight win streak, dropped 2 tough fights by split decision. He could have easily got one, if not both of those. Instead, they both go against him. But he's just 28 years old. That's the key. And that's why I'm predicting him to win. And that's why I'm also rooting for him, because he's the younger guy. He's got to have a good year or 2 and get the opportunity to continue moving up the ranks, get another big fight. And he's going to win a big one and get near the top 5 eventually. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Angela Hill was in a similar situation too, where she started winning and then lost 2 tough split decisions. Both, in both of those fights, she got robbed. I think, Jalin Turner didn't necessarily get robbed, but they could have gone either way, and they both went against him, and those are tough, man, when that happens. That's tough. But he'll beat Bobby Green, in my opinion. Now, the main event also, lightweight division. I love it. Co-main and main lightweight division, which means it's going to be a tough night for predictions. These are always the toughest fights to predict. Beneil Dariush, struggling a little bit lately. Well, not struggling, just lost to Dubronx, Charles Oliveira. Arman Tsarukyan, he's surging. So how's this fight going to play out? Let's get to it. In the lightweight division of UFC Austin, you got Beneil Dariush taking on Arman Tsarukyan. This is your main event. I love this fight. Dariush 22-5, Tsarukyan 20-3. These are two bangers in the lightweight division. Dariush 3 inches taller at 5'10". He's 34, so kind of trending out of his prime. Tsarukyan just 27, walking right into his prime. Both guys 72-inch reach. Beneil Dariush stands left-handed. Tsarukyan will stand right-handed. Both guys, activity the same, 3.8 significant strikes per minute, but Tsarukyan lands over 3 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds, right? He's landed over 1 takedown per round. Dariush gets like, a little more than 1 every other round, right at 1.9 over 3 rounds. So both guys very capable of getting takedowns, striking the same. Both guys with good takedown defense. Dariush 80%, Tsarukyan 75%. Now, Dariush coming off the loss to Charles Oliveira. I mean, Dubronx showed he's still basically like Max Holloway. He's the next best in the division behind Islam Makhachev. Dariush did beat Mateusz Gamrot. Didn't see it going that way. By decision, beat Tony Ferguson, beat Diego Ferreira. So he's won several fights before that loss against Dubronx. But if there's no Islam Makhachev, Dubronx is the champion, right? Now, on the other hand, Tsarukyan beat Joaquim Silva by KO, had 4 takedowns, dominated that fight, 3rd round KO against Demiris Magulov, who won by decision. He did lose to Mateusz Gamrot by decision, giving up 6 takedowns, led 95-81 in significant strikes, but Mateusz Gamrot, takedown after takedown. That didn't happen to Beneil Dariush, and when it did, he got out of it pretty quickly. In most cases, Dariush was able to defend the takedown better, slightly better than Tsarukyan. That's the only difference there. Before that, he ran off a bunch against like Joe Alvarez, Christos Giagos. So, the awkward part here is Arman Tsarukyan is the favorite, nearly 3-1. But he lost against Gamrot. Dariush beat Gamrot. 2 similar style fights. They both outstruck Mateusz, but Tsarukyan gave up 6 takedowns, Dariush 4. Tsarukyan gave up more control time than Dariush. That's a problem. It just shows that Dariush can defend the takedowns a little bit better than Tsarukyan, and I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. Dariush is going to want to keep the fight standing. He's going to want to win 3 rounds at least on the feet. If he gets the finish, great. This is a potential fight that goes a distance, though. And Dariush is back. He needs a win. He's not happy with the Charles Oliveira loss, and sometimes when guys come off a KO loss, it is questionable whether they'll win the next fight, right? But I think Dariush recovers quickly here. Might be a slow first round as he works the jitters off, but he'll get the win here, in my opinion, by decision on significant strikes, similar to 23-5, lightweight division, UFC Austin. Yeah, so got to go with Beneil Dariush in a tough lightweight main event battle. In these fights, especially in a lightweight division, anything can happen. It's the most difficult division to predict, and we got a main event and co-main event both in this division. So by the time this fight jumps off, you got the second of the 2, and the fight can go to the ground. It can remain standing. There's going to be takedown attempts. There's going to be a lot of takedown defense. The fundamentals are in full display in the lightweight division, no matter who's matched up, because you got all the skills on display in this division at the highest level. And it's why when you do any type of poll of what the best division in the UFC is, the lightweight, we've done this about 8 different times over the years. Lightweight has won 7 of the 8 polls. Welterweight won once when it was at its height. But lightweight always comes back and always leads the way in the polling, because the fans believe this is the toughest, most deep division in the UFC. So when you get a main event, it's always exciting. But guess what? We'll leave it at that. We got Beneil Dariush and Jalin Turner pulling things off. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. I hope you have a great day, and God bless, as always. Peace.